It was supposed to be a 40-minute session.
It was never going to be a 40-minute
I
session.
know.
Y'all are twins.
No, not.
You just tell yourself that lie.
But we talked, we shared stories, we laughed, and it was healing. And
across 4 or 5 states.
Yes. I mean, you were coordinating and helping folks, make adjustments, because but for the most part, we were able to zoom in on each other. We saw each other. We were able to switch back and forth, and that was a great experience for us. And let you know, you're never too old to learn. There's always some way that you can pick something up that's going to make life better. And we had a ball, and I want us to do it again. Well, going back to the teachers, this is how they have been able to maintain their connection, because they can see and they can hear. So even though I may not have that physical touch, the virtual touch is becoming more and more powerful, and I think we're becoming more and more appreciative of it, because as opposed to being completely cut off and isolated, I can flip a switch and look what you and I are doing, and we're able to do this every day. We can talk to brother and sister and grandchildren in Italy, and we do it with WhatsApp, and you've got all these other platforms, and more will be coming. So the silver lining that Governor Cuomo talks about all the time, and he's also become one of my favorite communicators, because he's educating and informing and calming people down every day. That silver lining is always there if you're willing to look for it. And in times like these, it's imperative that we do that, not only for ourselves, but for our children, because they are everybody's mental health, everybody's emotional health. It's
the barometer. Yeah, kids can really be a barometer. And that was the larger point I was trying to make too, that, when you have grown up and you have developed a kind of resiliency in your skin, I think you don't flinch so much. I think you will notice when they look back on the history books, the kids who grew up in my cohort weren't the ones who freaked out when this happened. And I think part of that's because of how we got raised. I think you will see that there were some millennials who were like, because, not to minimize, but the defining traumatic event of their lives was 9/11. And it was bad, but it was contained to 3 locations, and it was far away for a lot of people. It changed the nature of how we live in this country. Can't minimize that at all. I was 3 months away from having been there myself. So I don't minimize that. I've gone back and seen it. I still can't talk when I get around that space.
And then you've got to include the people who were impacted by the wars that broke out from that. I had students snatched out of my classroom who signed on for the National Guard. They want to do their stateside duty and, get that little extra money for college or whatever. And then one day
they got activated
to Baghdad. And I mean, they were never the same. And some of them, many people did not come back.
Well, it's because they didn't have the expectation of being called up. There hadn't been an actual call like that since Korea, because Korea happened after Vietnam. Korea was last time, and that wasn't in the living memory of many of our folks.
It was 50s,
So people who were signing up with the service expected, we might be deployed for a few things or whatever it is, but if you're signing up for Guard, you're going to be the ones who replace the regular duty soldiers who they send out there, the experienced ones. But when 9/11 was when that generation started, and it was violent, it was a war that started that awareness for them. See, my last one before I got grown was the school shootings.
Oh my.
And but my thing is that I can look at it now and I can remember where I was and how I felt. I'm thankful I had you and Dad, because y'all really did help us step through that. Our community helped us not to crawl under our beds and never want to come out again. But because we're built tough, 80s kids are built tough. We just are. Transformers and all the other guys, we are built really tough for the most part. Those of us who made it. And so I guess that's kind of good that we're the ones who are kind of in the middle piece right now, because I think we just have a different perspective. I don't feel like the world is coming to an end. I don't, because it's not. I think we have to remember that it's not just about us, that decisions that younger adults make can impact older adults. Decisions older adults make can impact younger adults, because it goes both ways. So you know how sometimes we get into this thing about the generational wars that are going on with the younger people feeling like the older people need to get out of their way, and the older people vote things that aren't helpful for young people.
I know, but a lot of pointing, yeah.
So what I think a situation like this coronavirus does is that it makes it a lot harder for you to dodge and avoid issues that were already simmering at the top of the pot.
Well, it has blown the top off, and it has exposed many things that, you're right, we knew, or the level of us understood were going on. They've now been exacerbated. I mean, it's exploded. And again, you can't really deal with the issues that you aren't willing to confront. And now it's in our face, and we can't get away from it. The hospital issues. I mean, when I found out that we only had barely a million hospital beds in the whole United States of America, and they were estimating millions more were going to need hospital beds. Thank the good Lord, we have not reached that point, and I hope we don't. But for a minute there, it was real scary, and that was a real possibility. And hospitals were getting overwhelmed everywhere because we weren't ready for this. We weren't ready for this. Not that the information hadn't been out there, but the steps that needed to be taken to protect the society had not been taken as they should have. And so again, we learned about leadership and where that needs to be, because it's like a domino effect. When you don't do your job and crap starts falling and hitting the fan, I mean, it's like one after the other. Everything is holistic. Everything gets impacted, from the hospital situation to the school situation to what's happening in your grocery store. Who knew that all of these aspects of our society were going to be impacted, and that we as citizens were going to get called into this to have to take our own steps and measures to protect ourselves, our families, our neighbors. And so this is a pivotal moment. We as a society are evolving. We are changing. And you're right. This isn't the first time we've been here.
But this is a forced evolution. This one is being forced on everyone. And those who are like, wait, hold up, you're going too fast for me, they're going to get run over. I mean, this is getting into a survival of the fittest and the fittest and the fittest to me. Because it's about your mind, it's about your mental approach, it's about your physical approach, and it's about the heart too. Who do we want to be as a nation? Who do we want to be as a global economy? What do we want to be our main drivers? And that's the invitation I'm excited about right now too. We have for too long been reactionary. We wait until right up on a situation instead of being proactive. How many different people were saying, y'all, we need to cut down on these emissions of what we're doing. We need to get cars off of the roads. We need to invest in mass transit. We need to do all these other things, because eventually this is going to catch up. Guess what?
Yeah.
It caught up. It caught up.
Right now, COVID has us where we almost we almost can't look at that because we're trying to deal with this over here. But
because we did not afford ourselves to be prepared for this. And I think that's something that people are going to have to really be honest about it. We wanted to spend money on other things as a nation. We wanted to do other things. We had the ability to go ahead and be better prepared for this. We wanted other things more, and it's coming back and smacking us.
Well, I think we have to be careful when we put people in groups. a lot of what you say is true in many instances. But there are people, and they probably got called crazy, at some point in time, that started putting the solar panels on their house. It started returning to having their own gardens and composting, who began recycling, and it was more than just an occasional school activity, but even the schools, began to pick up on that, so that they were planting those seeds in the minds of the children.
Yeah,
so,
we called them hippies. That's what we did. We called them hippies.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you could say that, but there were forward-thinking people who could see that this was something coming down the road, and that's a blessing, because those are your foundational pieces. You always are going to have those people who get it, who would have taken some steps. So when the rest of us see, oh shucks, that we need to get on with these things, we have some models to go to. You have people who have kind of begun to build that road. And so that's the blessing. That is the kind of the insurance that we have, that when that time comes,
it's a silver lining.
Roadmap. There will be some ideas and some things that we can put into play to help.
And don't get me wrong, we have those sustainable agricultural movement. A lot of that out of Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, as a matter of fact. There are a number of models, community models for that. Community garden movement was a big one, that those communities that did afford themselves to invest in it. I'm being very particular in that language. They are better able to respond to breaks in the supply chain and whatnot. I'm looking at this going, okay, now we need to look at where were the vulnerabilities? Where were the places where we couldn't get chicken for like 2 months out of the grocery store? I live in the chicken capital of the United States of America. I could have drove out to a farm and probably grabbed one, wrung his neck, and come back and cleaned it. In 2 months, I couldn't get chicken.
Old school now.
Oh, old school. Thank you, granddaddies and grandmamas. They lucky. Look, listen. I was thinking about, I wonder if I can remember how to can like Grandma Jeannie Mae did.
Look,
I remember she used to can.
There are people who are
in the city
visiting. Yes. Well, I mean, look at the food she grew out of the garden in her yard. The food your grandfather grew out of the garden in his yard. He fed the community.
For the record, both of my grandparents had gardens in their yards in East Chicago and Savannah. East Chicago, Indiana, and Savannah, Georgia. Country way is a good way.